Welcome once again to Mighty Morphin Ranger, the podcast where we watch an episode of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and after that, we have a bit of a chat about it.
Go, go, Ranger Danger! Go, go, Ranger Danger! Go, go, Ranger Danger! Matt and Michael's Ranger Danger!
This is episode number 56 of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, when we'll be watching the episode Finn...
Really?
I forgot, I'm sorry.
On Fins and Needles.
On Fins and Needles. I usually write it down and I just forgot. On Fins and Needles. Before we get to discussion of all things Power Rangers, I'd like to let you know that our website, where you can find show notes and the Ranger Danger creature feature and all sorts of bits and pieces, is at rangerdangerpodcast.com. You can send us an email, which we love, at rangerdangerpodcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to tweet at us, we're at RangerDcast. You can also subscribe to the show on YouTube and on iTunes. And you can also find us on Facebook and Stitcher
I
and
think that's it.
Google+.
Oh yeah, we're on Google+. No one.
No one cares about Google+. So Paisley's back. Welcome back, Paisley.
Hello.
Good to have you with us once again.
Me again. Good to be back.
I'm glad you think so. So before we get to the show, we have something we wanted to talk about, which is a discovery you made, Michael.
Yeah.
Now,
In fact, I want to try and bring up that discussion because I feel like quoting it.
okay, so Michael just sent me a link on Facebook.
I don't remember how I stumbled across this.
I don't know either.
I think I was looking up the Power Rangers comics that existed kind of in the 90s.
Yeah, because there was a run of comics.
Yeah, and I had this vague kind of knowledge that Marvel Comics had that license for a time.
Yeah.
But, so I sent Matt this link to, I'm pretty sure it's Comic Vine,
Yeah.
which is like a comic archivey site.
Yeah.
And Matt, do you want to explain what it is you saw there?
Well, it was the list of creators that grabbed my notice. Now, I noticed something first, which wasn't what you were pointing me towards. I can't remember what that was. Can you remember?
No, I can't.
No. But what Michael wanted me to see and what made me almost fall off my chair was the artist credit on it.
Yep.
Because the credited artist for the issue is Mr. Steve Ditko.
Yeah, and look, he's a small name in the world of comics.
So for those of you who don't know, Steve Ditko, along with Stan Lee, created a character called Spider-Man.
I've never heard of him.
Yeah.
Does he do whatever a spider can?
He does. He can spin a web of any size.
Wow. How would you say he catches thieves?
Probably just like flies.
That seems to make sense.
That would be my estimation. So the creator of Spider-Man worked on a Marvel comic.
Not just Spider-Man, he also co-created Doctor Strange.
Yep.
Important in the roles in the creation of the Hulk and Iron Man.
Yep.
At DC, he created a whole lot of characters that are kind of lesser known, but Blue Beetle, The Question, Hawk and Dove, Shade the Changing Man.
Yeah, he had a big role in The Question in particular. And The Question was where readers sort of got probably the best glimpse into his own sort of personal views about the world.
Yeah, so these days he's basically a recluse.
Well, that's what really surprised me about it, is that he basically holds himself up somewhere on the planet and makes comics basically for himself on occasion, but refuses to do interviews, doesn't talk to anyone if they want to talk about anything comics. He just has ostracized himself from society.
And that's since the 60s.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no interviews with Steve Ditko about Spider-Man. There's no...
Yeah.
He's never done any,
Mysterious.
Jonathan Ross, I think, tried to hunt him down at some point, and managed to find him with Neil Gaiman's help.
Yeah.
But Steve Ditko refused to be filmed or interviewed or photographed. He's completely disappeared from the world, basically.
Was he incredibly famous or not really?
I mean, he was famous to comics people.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
It probably wasn't being harassed by paparazzi.
no, that's certainly...
Okay.
So he was on Spider-Man for a good number of issues.
Oh, yeah.
But then had something of a falling out with Stan Lee about the direction the stories were taking.
Yeah,
basically.
that's as far as we are aware of what happened.
Yeah. and at that point, basically fell out with everyone.
Yeah, and I mean, he retired from mainstream comics only kind of in the late 90s.
Yeah,
But he certainly wasn't doing a lot of work for everyone.
yeah,
But some of his last work in mainstream comics at all was drawing some backup stories for this Power Rangers comic book. He drew at least 4, potentially more. And they were they were in the last 10 or 12 stories he ever drew for Marvel. And so they're 10-page stories long. Someone else wrote them. He just drew them.
I really want to see them. It would be fascinating to me because he's a really talented draftsman, and has a pretty good handle on.
I mean, look, I don't have a whole one, but I do have a single page from one that I can show you, and I'll link that in the show notes.
That barely looks like Steve Ditko's art at all.
I mean, it's being inked by someone else in the mid-90s.
You can kind of see that face in that face there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just so bizarre.
It's just, I mean, putting him on the Power Rangers is kind of genius because the Power Rangers formula kind of owes a lot to someone like Spider-Man.
Yeah.
At least it does when it's well done and good.
Yeah.
In that there's that kind of conflict between having a job where you have to go out and save the world and just being a regular teenager.
Yeah. And Ditko's influence, I believe, was a huge part of Spider-Man taking that route because he refused to draw Peter Parker as a big, handsome dude. He was a spindly, big glasses, very odd sort of dude. And it wasn't until John Romita Sr. took over the role immediately after Ditko that Peter suddenly became very handsome and started dating people that looked like models and was a lot more of a traditional hero.
Yeah.
But it was Ditko that sort of basically created that idea of the awkward teenager with social responsibilities that lets off steam by being a superhero.
So, I mean, it's just insane, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Of all the places, he could probably work for just about anyone if he was willing to go and ask for it.
Yeah.
You know, but I guess doing this kept him out of the eye of... Even if you're working in the comics industry at the moment, you could not notice this happening.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to go looking through the credits
It's
pages.
a small licensed book.
Yeah.
I mean, once rumour spread, it would spread straight away.
Yeah.
But it's just...
It's very...
For him to end... I mean, look, if he was happy doing it,
Yeah.
I don't want to say, what a shitty job.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that he did it to the best of his ability. But for the guy who created Spider-Man, for some of the last kind of mainstream comic work he did to be drawing the Power Rangers, is just...
Odd and a little depressing.
Yeah, that would be exactly how I would word it.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's that.
I mean, I'd love to talk to him about it, but no one talks to him about anything. So he does have a studio in Manhattan still. So
I know
you could find him.
Brian Bendis, who's worked on Ultimate Spider-Man for the past 10 to 15 years, probably
Yes.
the most influential Spider-Man writer in the past 20 years. Although maybe Dan Slaughter,
Sure.
you go back and forth. But he managed to get a hold of Steve Ditko for a little bit, and said that he was very polite, but again said, "I'm not going to talk to you about it. Good luck with your career. Good to hear from you, but I refuse to discuss it."
I mean, I guess he's just moved on and doesn't want to...
Yeah.
What happened though?
He
To,
got
something must have gone down.
well. He has
to
a very
react so
very strong
intensely.
beliefs. He's
Is it objectivism?
Yeah.
Is that what he is?
he's a big believer in the Ayn Rand sort of moral objectivism, where there's clear cut right and clear cut wrong, and it's a very intense personal philosophy, I guess. And I think the way comics were done back then was that Stan Lee might give him a rough outline of what he'd like, but rather than getting a script, he would just go and draw an issue, and then Stan would come back and do the dialogue balloons over the top, which gave him a really he had a lot of power in what happened in the story.
And I'm pretty sure the famous story is that at one point Jack Kirby just gave Stanley these pages with a silver dude on a surfboard on it.
Yeah.
And Stanley was like, I don't know what this is, but I guess we'll make it work.
Yeah. And hence the Silver Surfer was born.
Yeah.
So he had a lot of power, and I think he was taking these stories in a direction that could be perceived as quite dark, and I think there was a lot of kickback against that, because it went from Peter being a strange kind of outsider to it getting, really intense into him being a strange guy, I guess.
There was also kind of the workplace environments weren't always particularly healthy.
No.
There was lots of kind of, not infighting, but like people who didn't get along working together and
I
people
think
falling out over
in
stuff.
the Marvel offices at that time, they were a pretty liberal, like smaller liberal, easygoing group of people. Whereas he was very straight down the line, objectivist, right and wrong. I expect he just clashed with people in general there because of his personality.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's just what happened.
That's what happened.
One day he's going to come out of hiding and we will get him on the show and we'll talk to him about Power Rangers.
Aim high.
So, whoever it was last week who wanted us to talk more about comics.
Yeah, I was about to say, I
Yeah.
think you just worked out
Boom.
how to do that.
Look, I will try my best to see if there's any kind of copies of these available. I suspect that they're all... I can't imagine that the license is still up, so...
Yeah, I'm sure they'll be
I'm
published.
sure they're not in trade or on Comixology or anything like that.
No, but we might have some luck on eBay or something.
We'll have a look around and we'll see. There might be some scans or something.
If anyone can find it, you can.
I mean, sure, probably. So yeah, on Fins and Needles.
Yeah, all right.
Have a guess. Fish monster, shark monster. What are the needles? Is it going to have needle?
I'm
Is someone
on
gonna be
Shark
making a
Monster,
quilt?
and maybe he shoots stuff from his teeth.
Sure. Do you think someone's sewing?
I don't think it's that clever.
Oh god, you've done one and you're already as depressed about it as we are.
This is my fourth one now.
Sure. Okay, we're going to go watch on Fins and Needles.
Yep.
And we'll be back in a sec.
See you soon, guys. And welcome back. We just watched Fins and Needles.
On Fins and Needles.
On Fins and Needles. No needles.
No. Fins?
One
Plenty of fins.
Well, one fin, really.
He had several fins.
Did he?
But why
Yeah, like
on
shoulder
fins and
fins.
needles? Why not just fins and needles?
That's...
Not going to get any
I
answer
guess-
to that question.
I guess the idiom is on pins and needles. I guess it's really not, is
I
it?
don't know.
We look it up.
Okay. Well, while you're doing that...
I can answer that question.
we've got a Sarah intervention.
It's a really wanky answer. When I did my thesis, I was doing it on... Oh, it was creative consciousness. So I was going to call it creative consciousness.
Yeah.
And one of my lecturers was like, no, make it on creative consciousness. Put the on in it because it's very sophisticated and it's intellectual and blah, blah, blah. And there was a long answer and I did it. But there you go.
Okay, so apparently it makes it more intellectual.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go.
I've often felt that about this show, is that what it's missing is just some rigour.
Yeah, intellectualism.
It didn't help.
No.
It
Thank you, Sarah. So I was a little disappointed by this episode.
It wasn't great.
Particularly coming off the last one, which was quite satisfying. So we take it from the top of the episode and run through it?
Yeah, let's do that.
Before we get into that, though, I'd like to say that in the intro, now that you've pointed it out, Paisley, I definitely see the thrusting.
Yeah.
And I think it's the heavy drumming that occurs and the flashing.
Yeah.
It's very aggressive. So that's when in the opening, when the Megazord is standing up into it, there's a series of very fast cuts in between that and the logo. It's just a weird choice. It definitely looks like the Megazord is assaulting you with its crutch violently.
That's just how we like it. So, Tommy's training some kids. And
Jason.
So is Jason.
Tommy and Jason. This little bit here actually does a pretty decent job for me, is selling me on the fact that they are a pretty good team and they work well together. And they're both pretty cool dudes, at least in the show.
Yep.
really appreciated that, in the karate class, it was a young girl that they asked to demonstrate her skills, and they're like, good job with that. And there was a really good mix of race and gender in a young martial arts class.
Was that a girl?
Her name was Melissa.
Yeah.
So
Oh, okay.
I'd be willing to
Alright.
put a pretty strong bet on
Yeah.
it being.
I just really appreciated that.
It is nice, isn't it? Yeah.
Before this episode goes painfully meta.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that bit. So we get a nice, strong moral Karate should only be used for self-defense.
Which is something they brought up
Violence in general.
many times, but it's worth pointing out, I guess, because the show did result in some violence
Yes.
among children.
I mean, the show resolves all of its problems by punching.
Yeah.
So it is important to tell kids that you can't resolve all your problems by punching. Or shouldn't. You probably could. But,
Yeah.
yeah. So Rita's going to make Tommy and Jason enemies.
Yep. By using some sort of magical shark fin.
Yes, the Slippery Shark's enemy spell.
Yeah.
It has a boomerang that can make people enemies.
Yeah.
And once again, this is one of those examples of where the monster, like, is just given an arbitrary additional power for the, like,
Purpose of the
the
plot.
purpose of the American story.
Yeah.
Because, like, it's just a shark monster. It can teleport. It's got a fish boomerang. There's no reason it needed to be able to turn people into enemies as well.
No.
But that's the way the...
It did like
Cookie.
mess them up though. Like it was a pretty decent sort of.
Oh,
Play
it was
by-
reasonably
by
effective.
Rita.
It was just strange that it's a shark that does that.
Yeah.
So I guess now is the time to mention that Austin St. John and Jason David Frank really don't get along.
Yeah.
In real life, they
Yes.
don't. Ooh.
And haven't for quite a long time.
Do we know why that is?
Look, I don't want to speak with too much authority on this, but it seems like what it is that Austin St. John is a reasonably humble guy, and Jason David Frank is a big personality. An uncharitable person might call him egotistical.
Yeah, I think that's probably too far.
Yeah.
But I certainly think he's much more about kind of promoting himself and his brand.
Yeah.
I think basically what happened was there were, like, Austin St. John was the leader of the Power Rangers for like 20 episodes, and then they brought on this new guy, and all the kids like loved him so much.
Yeah.
And they sent him away, and the kids like cried and wrote emails to bring him back. And like it's got to be rough as someone who's just been like was in charge of that.
He's used to being the favorite.
Although the few accounts that I've heard about this does make it sound like it was more Jason David Frank's sort of off-screen interactions
Sure.
with him.
And so that, yeah, they still don't get along.
Terribly.
My understanding is that Jason David Frank is quite strongly associated with Wizard World conventions in America, and that Austin St. John is like barred from appearing at them. There was a recent case where Jason David Frank cancelled a convention appearance immediately after it was announced that Austin St. John was going to be there.
Which is unfortunate because Jason David Frank is an okay guy and Austin St. John is super nice.
I think they're both entirely... Yeah, I think at this point I can reveal that I had a Facebook interaction with Austin St. John like 2 days ago from when we're recording this.
Yep.
And
Wait, can I just... Which one is which?
Austin St. John is the Red Ranger.
Okay.
Jason.
And I mean, look, it's hard to tell from 4 sentences each way, but he seems to be a really nice dude.
Yeah. And it's also worth noting that Austin St. John went on to public service, becoming a firefighter, paramedic?
It's unclear. He may have done all or both of those things.
Yeah.
He may have joined the military at some point.
Yeah.
It's unclear as to kind of what he did in the 15 years between him being on Power Rangers and him.
Yeah. So for a long time he led sort of a very quiet life of public service, whereas Jason David Frank was more into, I guess, promoting his brand.
Yeah, coming, like, you know, he appeared on Power Rangers much more frequently.
Yeah. I think if you were going to link it back to comics, because that seems to be the theme of the
Sure.
episode, I'd liken it to Stan Lee and Jack Kirby.
Yep.
Wherein neither of them are really bad people.
No.
It's just that one of them is really into self-promotion and is quite successful at it, whereas the other one just doesn't like that side of it
Was
so
happy
much.
to do the thing that he was doing, but yeah.
Yeah. But personalities.
Personality clash.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's a shame, really, because, I mean, getting the two of them back together again
Would be cool.
It'd be nice if they could kind of settle the differences, but, you know, it's not my place to force them to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so there's that.
So Rita's spell clearly worked very well.
Yeah. So back to the episode.
Back to the episode, which is far less interesting.
both Tommy and Jason go to the park for a fight. Sorry, not for a fight. They just
They're
go to
just
the park.
walking through the
They're
park.
just hanging out by themselves.
And a fight
Just all
occurs
alone.
because some putties turn up.
Yep.
And the putties have brought with them the shark's fin
Yep.
that causes the spell.
Yep.
Sorry, hang on, microphone problems. There we go. Okay, so they have a very brief fight with the putties in which the putties throw the fins first at Jason, I believe.
No, first at Tommy.
First at Tommy, sorry.
Tommy like catches it, is all really like cool about
Yeah,
it.
catches it in midair
Yeah.
and sort of looks like he's solved the problem, but then it shocks him and knocks him to the ground. And then a very similar thing happens. A putty throws it at Jason, and he like just grabs it with both hands out of the air, and also gets shocked. At this point, the putties disappear,
Yeah.
and they both start having lightning flashing in their eyes, and just basically start bickering with each other over who was more successful in the fight, which leads them to discussing who would be better as a leader, and they're basically just really angry at each other. And knowing the outside history of the show makes it kind of uncomfortable to watch.
It is a little uncomfortable, isn't it?
Yeah. Because it's kind of like, it's
They might have been having that argument like
for real.
offset.
Yeah. They probably believe what they're saying. They're not acting.
I mean, there's one line coming up where Jason says the Power Rangers were doing just fine before you showed up.
Yeah.
Which, like, man, that definitely could be something that someone heard and wrote down.
Yeah. So they're back at the school.
Yep.
And Jason wants to access his locker, but Tommy's in the way.
Yep.
Which leads them to another dispute.
Yep.
Bulk and Skull see this happening and take that as an opportunity to intervene and egg on the fight.
At which point Tommy yells, "I'm gay for it."
I don't think that's what he says.
Selective hearing.
Do you ship Tommy and Jason? Is that what you're saying?
Totally.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, I don't even think you'd be the only person. That wouldn't even come close to surprising.
Yeah, far from it. Trini and Kimberly try and talk them down. Bulk and Skull try and egg them on. And then Miss Appleby turns up.
Yep.
At which point, Bulk and Skull are like, oh, we were just trying to intervene and stop this from happening. And Miss Appleby is like, I find that very hard to
Miss
believe.
Appleby
Yeah.
having none of your shit today.
I believe what I had written down here was Miss Appleby calls B plus S on their BS.
Hey! I have to say my favourite bit is, like, Tommy tells Trini and Kimberly that he's quit the class that he's teaching, and Trini says, "Quit? How come?" And Jason says, "Because he's a quitter, and that's what quitters do."
I love how, you lay out an insult just to make it better. That definitely makes it more effective.
It's not even because he's a quitter. Like, that wouldn't have been enough.
Yeah.
You've got to double down.
Yeah.
Because, like, what does a quitter do? I mean, maybe I'm not clear on the actions of a quitter.
So they decide to postpone this little clash between them.
Yeah.
And what we see next is that Bulk and Skull are selling tickets to a fight between the two of
Yeah,
them.
which is, very entrepreneurial of them.
Look, when the moment arises, they're actually pretty decent businessmen.
Yeah.
Bulk is the much smarter of the two, isn't he?
That's
Yeah.
definitely true.
Yeah.
As evidenced by the fact that Bulk asks Skull how much money they've made. Skull says he lost count. Bulk asks how much money they'd made before he lost count. And Skull says, $1.
It's a pretty decent joke. So there's just a huge line of people lining up to see this fight. About 30% of them wearing sunglasses indoors.
Well, I mean, that's what you wear when you go to see a fight. You wouldn't. What if they shoot lasers? What if there's lasers at the fight?
It's true. So Jason and Tommy are facing down on the mats, getting ready to fight. We hear the music "Fight," the song called "Fight" start playing. I was getting pretty amped to see them fight. I would have been down for that.
I mean, we've seen them kind of like
Spar.
karate practice at each other before.
Yeah.
So I think letting them do that for 5 minutes wouldn't have been a bad thing.
No, I think it would have been great. But instead what we get is 5 minutes of Dragon Ball Z style posturing where they sort of dance around each other and be like, for a little while. But eventually the other Rangers turn up. And
Zack intervenes.
Although at first he doesn't succeed, but then their communicators go off, and that's enough to shake them out of it and be like, okay, maybe we need to stop this for now.
So at this point we've seen the slippery shark.
Yeah.
And imagine like a bipedal humanoid hammerhead shark
Yeah.
with like fins on its shoulders.
A little
Weird
cross-eyed.
six-pack thing going on.
And he's got like an underwater effect on his voice.
Yeah.
He's kind of cool.
Uh,
I mean, the issue is that he's used kind of terribly and
Yeah.
disappointingly. But as a design, it's not bad.
He's also
It's
that.
no Soccadillo.
He's also that really annoying teleporting character.
Yeah.
It's like, go over here. Now I'm over here. But now I'm over here. And it's
But
just-
they never use that in like actual fights.
No,
No,
there was
they-
just like that one like really awkwardly shot of him like teleporting like across a field.
yeah.
I imagine that's just because to do that teleporting, you got to lock off the camera
Yeah.
and like freeze everyone while it moves,
And you see
just
it like flicker every single time.
to do that in a fight is just going to be.
Remember when there was that monster that had like time displacement ability, and they had that fight with the monster that was sort of only half visible?
Oh yeah, and they must have shot them separately and combined them.
Yeah, I feel like they could have done something along those lines that would have looked awesome. Where just like phasing him in and out of the shot.
I mean, I certainly think it's possible. In my head, I'm thinking you'd have to like mask bits of him off from when he's behind people, and like it's definitely more effort than this show is willing to go to.
But in the Japanese footage, we've seen some stuff that's pretty impressive.
They could have definitely, but they didn't.
Yeah. Which is the ongoing theme of disappointment we have.
I have a question about the Jason Tommy fight.
Yeah.
Why is Ernie allowing it? Because it's in the middle of the floor of the juice bar.
Let me explain this one to you, Michael. A few episodes ago, we saw that Ernie's business is failing.
Right, yeah, no.
He has
okay.
no money. I promise you, he's getting
He's taken a cut.
30% of the cut. He's not happy about it, but he's got kids to feed.
That's fair enough.
So-
Does he have kids?
I'm assuming.
I would assume that he gets, like, after he goes home from that juice bar, he doesn't want anything to do with children.
Yeah. Well, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if he's running a fight club and that's how the juice bar is still existing.
That'd be good. So anyway, we're at the command center, and you know, Zordon's telling him about the shark.
Yep.
Zordon is aware that they've had a spell cast on them,
Yep.
which is, you know, very helpful, I guess. Good on him.
Speaks again to our theory that he's able to see everything that goes on at Rita's palace.
At the very least, he's definitely watching Jason and Tommy all the time.
Yep.
Isn't that a bit creepy?
Yes. Yes is the answer to that question.
Try an oldish man perpetually watching a bunch of teenagers.
I wouldn't say oldish, I would say old. He's
Okay,
several
yeah.
millennia old. That's past the ish territory.
So the only way that they can not hate each other anymore
Yeah, break the spell.
is to set aside their differences to fight the monster,
Yep.
and they have to do that alone. They can't do that with the other rangers.
Yep.
I don't know that makes a lot of sense, but I'm
I kinda
willing to
like-
move past it.
When it's magic,
Sure.
which it is, I'm happy to give a lot of leeway to spells that are like, once you've overcome the conceptual or thematic problem, that breaks the spell,
Right.
you know?
Fair enough.
So, yeah, I get that.
Okay.
So they go to the park
Yep.
to fight the shark, which is a good 5 minutes of it being underground and then being above ground.
Like
And
the same shot of the fin like cutting through the grass
Yeah.
like 20 times.
it should have been a cool power. It mainly ended up pissing me off
Yeah.
for quite a long time.
I mean, I think the worst part for me is that kind of the fin cuts through the ground.
Yeah.
And then they jump out of the way.
Yeah.
But there's never any indication of like that spatial relationship at all.
Yeah.
The fin could be very far in the distance.
Yeah.
It's just
And we never properly understand whether this is hurting the Rangers or if they're just
dodging.
dodging every
Oh my
single
God.
time. The whole thing is very unsatisfying.
So they come up with two separate plans.
Yeah.
Jason's plan is to attack the ground because that's when you can see it.
Yeah.
And Tommy's plan is you have to attack it when it's in the air.
I think it's actually the other way
I
around.
think it might have been the other way
Yeah.
around.
Yeah.
Because that's when it's coming for you, so
Yeah.
that's when it's exposed.
Yeah.
They're both reasonable plans, I guess.
As far as plans go, sure.
What really ends up happening is it attacks them both, it kind of gets them both, and then they just go, let's attack it together.
Yeah, let's decide
It's-
we're a team again.
Yeah, I mean...
They fist bump. They actually fist bump. And then the spell is broken.
Yeah.
Yay.
Cool, like blue electricity crackling to symbolize.
Yeah.
It's pretty arbitrary and
Yeah. Unsatisfying. Yeah.
much like many of the parts of this show.
So what they ended up doing to catch it off guard initially is when it jumps out at them, Tommy jumps on Jason's shoulder,
Yep.
pulls a net from God knows where and throws the net.
His
His butt, and then puts it on the
Butt
shark.
net.
butt net.
Yeah.
A net that apparently disables the slippery shark's transportation abilities.
Yeah.
So it can't just like, oops, not in the net anymore.
It's a good net.
Foiled by a green fishing net.
Those nets, they'll get you.
It's a science net. It disrupts the teleportation matrix.
I mean, look, if
Phasing.
you want something to
neutrinos.
stop a shark, you get a shark net,
Sure.
right? So
Yeah, no.
that it makes a strange amount of sense to
But
me.
if you want something to stop a teleporting shark, you just get out of the water.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
That's a metaphor. I don't know.
No.
And then the shark.
Wait, is the water life
I
in this
guess. I
instance?
don't know.
So to defeat the shark, you have to kill yourself? Is that what you're saying?
So then the shark remembers that it has a boomerang sword.
Yeah.
And cuts its way out of the net.
Yeah.
Which explodes.
Yeah.
Like,
What's a good net, Michael?
The shark is also, this is like a piece of like personality that the shark has. It seems like really put out that they've like attacked it, and he's like, oh, come on, guys. It's like, you're just trying to like kill them. Like,
well, yeah, but let him do it. Give him a go. That's only fair.
he does it again later. They like are about to like hurt him, and he's like, oh no, please don't do this. Like, you kind of deserved it.
Yeah.
So yeah, look, the other rangers can go now because the spell's been broken. So they go down, they fight the shark for a bit.
Yep. They get out their blaster,
Yep.
assemble it, fire it at it, but as they're firing the blaster, Rita sends down her wand to make the monster grow.
That bit's pretty cool.
It's interesting and odd, and because the monster's growing, they miss, and you see the blaster like fire in front of the shark.
Yep.
Another one of those situations where it makes it extremely curious that Rita didn't use that option every single time they've used
But
the
I mean,
blaster.
the strange thing about it is a lot of the time the monster gets destroyed and then she makes it grow and it reconstitutes itself.
Yeah.
So I don't see why in this case
That was necessary.
she was like rushing to get it done.
Yeah. But it was cool.
Sure.
Like, different from normal, so we'll take it.
Like really low shot of exactly the same costume
Yeah.
of the shark.
Yeah, that's how you know it's giant.
Yeah.
Look, they're working on a very limited budget, and they're doing pretty well. I think those large scale monster effects are some of the best things the show does.
Yeah.
Especially when it's in the foreground and stomping on them with a foot and shots like that. Those are great.
Yeah.
So there's a pretty normal monster fight. They basically have to grab it and let the Dragon Zord hit it.
Yeah, the Dragons will get to do something this time. Which
Yeah,
is
I
good.
mean, this felt, given the emphasis on everyone working together, this felt like the perfect opportunity for the Ultra Zord to take out the monster.
Yeah, but no.
No, they just...
The first half of the fight was kind of disappointing, but I did like once the big shark monster got its shark fin out, it's not easy as a sword.
Yep.
It was a halfway decent sword
There
fight.
aren't enough sword fights in this show.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable saying that.
And that was pretty cool, the sword fight. And then when it finally finishes it off, it wasn't its usual like big clockwork huge swing.
No.
They charged up and then did like a really fast and sharp like side slash.
Yep.
And that was cool. So yeah.
More swords, guys. If you can take anything away from this, more swords in this show.
It's a good rule.
Power Rangers swords.
Yeah.
Just who uses swords? Knights, pirates, pirate knights. If you could do Power Rangers pirate knights, it would be great.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm down for that.
Power Rangers pirate knights.
We need
guys.
to go to Japan and speak to the Sentai guys. And be
Yeah.
like, look, here's what we need.
Here's our idea for a theme, okay?
Yeah.
Just swords. Just they all turn into swords.
Cool.
That might be difficult to convince them on.
Just make your own show.
Power sworders. Look, it's
Okay,
gonna
we'll
take
work on it, we'll
it's gonna
work on
take more than 30 seconds of thinking, okay? I don't think anyone's ever gone into a TV pitch meeting with just like Power Rangers but swords, okay? I'm gonna put some more work into it before we pitch it to anyone.
Power Bladers? I don't look. Anyway, we'll table it for now. Discussion later.
Sure.
back to the juice bar.
Yep.
Where Tommy and Jason are happily teaching their class again. Unfortunately, this gets interrupted by Bulk and Skull,
Everything does.
who have their clothes ripped apart. Looks like they were pretty badly mangled by this mob.
I mean, yeah, I can only assume, because the show never really says anything, I
Yeah.
can only assume that people were angry about having been cheated out of a fight.
And they just got horrifically beaten.
And rather than just give everyone their dollar back,
They
like
took
it
it.
would be easy because, like, they were still holding them when the fight ended.
I think it's pretty in character for Bulk. Rather than saving himself a horrific beating, held on to $20.
Yeah.
Sure, that's probably not unfair.
Yeah.
So yeah, they go to punch the Rangers because they're upset. They lean back. They punch each other in the
Full
fist.
like Matrix, like leaning back moment there.
That's giving it too much credit.
Sorry.
Yeah, they lean backwards. Bulk and Scott punch each other's fists.
Yeah.
It looks like it hurts them much more than I'd have thought it would.
I don't know, if you got both, that would be quite painful.
Oh, yeah, okay, that
Yeah.
could be pretty painful.
Yeah.
That's fair. I just didn't think of them as having much punching power, but sure.
Well, it's established that Bulk is actually quite strong.
Yeah, because he had a
A weightlifting
record, yes.
Yeah, and that's pretty much it, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the end of the episode.
Cool. So where do we put the whatever the shark was called?
He was called the Slippery Shark.
Fucking slippery shark.
I don't think he was great.
No. I would say bottom half of the Ranger Danger creature feature.
Sure.
What do you think?
Yeah, I'd agree with you there. How do you feel about him in relation to, say, Cyclopsis?
I think at least he had a bit more of a consistent gimmick.
Right, okay. Better than Pinoctopus?
No. Pinoctopus was a clown that turned into a giant pineapple octopus. That's pretty cool.
Pineapple octopus.
Yeah.
Yep.
A clown
Yep.
pineapple octopus.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, this show, man. So yeah, I think below. What do you think?
Okay, sure. What about above Cyclops from the Green Candle?
Yeah, I think Cyclops was another one that was a pretty one-note monster.
Right, sure.
So
So between Cyclops and Pinoctopus?
yeah, I think so. Do you agree?
Yeah, I'd agree with you there.
Okay, cool.
That's number 31.
31 on the list. Not too bad for old Slippery Shark.
Good work, Slippery Shark. Thank you very much, Paisley.
Yeah, before
You're
we
welcome.
wrap up totally,
Oh, sure.
I just wanted to say, because we talked about Hexagon
Yes.
on an episode recently, which was an episode, a season of Power Rangers that never really panned out.
Yep.
But the idea would be that both Tommy and Jason would return to the show as leaders of rival camps of younger Power Rangers.
Yep.
And I thought this episode is an interesting indication of what might have happened there, what would have happened
Yep.
if these characters were actually
Rivals.
rather than like because of magical spell reasons.
Sure.
Because of ideological reasons. And I thought it was just interesting to sort of take note of that in this
Yeah.
episode. That was a...
I mean, you can certainly see where kind of the idea that those two might not always get along came from.
Yeah.
Other than real life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just thought we'd take note of that. Yeah, that's all I got.
All right. Sure.
Sweet.
Thank you very much, Paisley, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Welcome.
Really appreciate you joining us for the past 2 episodes.
Yeah. So we will be back next week
Yes.
with the episode called Enter the Lizardnator.
This will be our second lizard monster, isn't it?
Who was our first lizard monster?
Snizzard?
Was Snizzard even a lizard? I don't even remember.
Well, he was
Name than
a
the
reptile
lizard.
with Izzard in his name, so...
Oh, yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Pretty nefarious sounding.
Yeah. He was voiced by Bryan Cranston from Breaking Bad.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my
true story.
god.
Yeah.
Where's he on the Ranger Danger Creature?
I think Snizzard is far higher than Snizzard deserves to be, based solely on that fact.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll have a new guest,
Yep.
which is exciting. That's all I got to say, really.
Yeah. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you for joining us, Paisley. And we will see you all next week for more Power Rangers.
Yeah.
Woo!